Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 mod review. Today, I've got something very special for you all, a mod that's going to add a ton of new content to Fallout 4, and that mod is Radical Children of Adam add-ons by Rascal Art. Now, if you're not familiar with Rascal Art, this author makes a ton of really cool mods that add new creatures into the game, and with this mod, that is no different. We're going to get a ton of new creatures, new human enemies, new items, new weapons, and even some new lore for Fallout 4. Most of this surrounding Children of Adam, but also some of the other Far Harbor areas as well, getting some new NPCs that aren't just exclusive to the Children of Adam, but definitely help to add to their lore, which is pretty interesting. Now, right off the bat, this is supposed to be an expansion to the Children of Adam, so you will get a primary focus there, adding new NPCs that will not only make the combat a little bit more difficult, but it's also going to add to a bit of the story and offer some answers to maybe some questions you have had about the Children of Adam. It definitely answers some questions I had. Now, on top of that, there are also some new flora and fauna added to Far Harbor to make that area a little bit more interesting as well. Some of these, though, are actually going to provide resources to allow you to make additions to the weapons added to the new Children of Adam enemies, adding an actual reason for these new creatures to exist. On top of that, there's even a new faction that's been added to help explain sort of what happens to the Children of Adam once they've gotten just a little bit too much radiation. Now, as is typical with big mods like this, I think the first thing we need to do is actually go over all of the new NPCs added in this mod, as I'm sure that's what you want to see first. So we'll take a look at all of these, talk about what they do, and also show off what they look like. We'll be starting off with some of the more miscellaneous creatures. One of the new enemies you'll find in the world is known as Fireflies. Very similar in build to blowflies, these are going to be some new flying insects that will offer new items, including firefly meat and glands, and there's even a few variants of the fireflies, including the regular base fireflies, but also some firefly swarms, which are a lot like the ant swarms from Nuka World, and even a firefly queen, which is a very, very cool looking creature. This is a really interesting bash of different in-game elements to make a brand new insect that I think is a really cool addition to Far Harbor. Now, the reason these Firefly enemies are important is because over at the chemistry station in the grenade section, you can now craft a new grenade known as Hot Stuff. Basically an advanced Molotov that is going to require some Firefly eggs as well as some Firefly queen glands. Now, they're not the only miscellaneous enemies. We also have the Feral Ghoul Spitters, a new addition to the Feral Ghouls in Far Harbor that will spit radioactive goop at you. Yeah, they are pretty interesting little guys, and you can often find them in highly radioactive areas, and you may even find some new glowing rocks near them as well. These rocks will be very, very important later. Now, the final miscellaneous creature added in this mod is known as the Fog Haunter. I can't actually find a reason for these guys to be added in regards to the Children of Adam, but they definitely are awfully creepy and make an interesting new late game scary enemy to Far Harbor, one that I think a lot of you guys aren't going to mind. This definitely helps add to the difficulty in the game, and these guys are actually kind of tough. Now then, that we have all those creatures out of the way, let's talk about the Children of Adam themselves, starting off with the new faction, known as the Divided. This is essentially the answer to what happens when these Children of Adam actually get enough radiation to become ghoulified. Well, the answer is the Divided. Once they have become ghouls and are teetering on the edge of becoming feral, they kind of branch off into their own little faction here to get away from the Children of Adam, because they may in fact become feral and start harming others. You may even see some of these enemies with gags or masks so that when they become feral they don't harm their friends, which is a pretty interesting little addition. You'll notice that a lot of these guys are borderline feral in their appearance, having either feral skin with a normal ghoul head, or some of them even being full feral, but still able to wear armor and wield weapons. Now, the main bulk of these guys that you'll find are known as Divided Raiders, which are essentially just ghouls in armor, sporting your typical Children of Adam weapon like radium rifles and gamma guns. But there's also the Adam's Blessed enemy, which is going to be a child of Adam who's fully embraced the radiation and has become much larger and is now sporting armor of a lot of the wasteland creatures like Mire Lurks as well as Deathclaws. These guys are very heavy and will sport pretty big weapons like miniguns, and they prove to be a little bit tough in combat. Technically, if you think about it, the complete embracing of the radiation in the sense of being completely ghoulified like the Divided here might actually be the goal of the Children of Adam after all, but some of the Children of Adam don't see it that way, and that's why these guys are actually hostile to the Children of Adam faction. But interestingly enough, they are not hostile to feral ghouls, so you may find them near feral ghouls and they will actually be allied with them, so that is pretty interesting. Altogether, this makes for a pretty cool and interesting addition to the lore. What does happen when a Child of Adam becomes too ghoulified? Well, now we have an answer to that and a fun new faction to fight over in Far Harbor. Now, this new faction isn't the only addition that the Children of Adam got. The Children of Adam faction itself also got some new enemies, mainly in the form of the Strident Zealots. The Zealots are going to be wearing their own sets of makeshift exosuits, sort of like power armor, but a little bit weaker, and these guys are pretty tough. They've also got their own new weapons. They will still use radium rifles, but you may also find now a couple of new weapons like the bolt rifle and the shard cannon. When it comes to these Zealots, there are actually a lot of ranks of these guys. A lot of them look really, really similar to each other, but eventually you may find a Lore Keeper who has their own completely unique look, sporting gold armor, as well as a bunch of scriptures, candles, and even a glowing one's head built into their armor. This honestly looks very Warhammer, but for the first time ever, I don't really mind it. I think that for the Children of Adam aesthetic, this actually works really, really well, and somehow I kinda like it in my game. Now, that's about it for all of the newly added enemies to the game. There are quite a few, but there are two new weapons I mentioned that we need to check out as well, because these things are actually fully custom and are pretty dang cool. The first weapon we'll be checking out is the bolt rifle, a very large, essentially modified railway rifle, but it does have its own unique quirks, including the fact that it does deal some radiation damage. As far as animations are concerned, this thing does use the railway rifle reload animation, and whenever you want to find this thing, you're pretty much only going to be able to find it on those Strident Zealots from the Children of Adam, so you are going to need to head over to Far Harbor to find this thing. But once you've got it, it does boast some pretty beefy stats and a really cool aesthetic. As we can see here, it's got 100 ballistic damage as well as 50 radiation damage. Fires the brand new bolt ammo type and has some pretty quirky stats beyond that, with a fire range of 20, a range of -5, that's something that would definitely need to be tweaked, an accuracy of 67, a weight of 15.5 pounds, and a value of 345 caps. Aside from the range, the stats are pretty dang balanced. The range thing is a weird thing that can happen sometimes with your O mods if you don't put on the right keywords, so hopefully that'll get fixed in an update. Now, there is one other weapon I mentioned known as the Shard Cannon. This is going to be a new heavy weapon for the Children of Adam. Again, only found on the Strident Zealots. This thing is going to fire out those glowing rocks that I mentioned earlier. If you craft them into glowing rock shards, you have a brand new fun ammo type that allows you to have a heavy gamma-based weapon in Fallout 4. And this thing is really cool and really unique, very much unlike anything else I've seen on the Nexus. This guy boasts a pretty interesting aesthetic as well, offering some nice scriptures here, as well as a really cool Children of Adam theme. This thing has a base damage of 100 ballistic damage and 100 radiation damage, uses those rad shards I mentioned, has a fire rate of 10, a range of 143, an accuracy of 62, a weight of a whopping 17.6 pounds, and a value of 250 caps. And guess what? Both of these weapons, despite being included in a really huge pack, even come with customization. So let's go ahead and check that out as well. Now then, over at the weapons workbench, starting off with the rad bolt rifle, you'll see that we actually have a good bit of options. Starting off with the receivers, we have the standard and the automatic piston receiver, both of which coming with their own unique aesthetics, which I think is really, really cool. We also have two different stocks, the recoil compensating stock and the short stock. We have some scope options. We have the reflex sight, the short scope, and the standard iron sights. For the muzzle, we have the option for no muzzle or a large bayonet. And then finally, we do have a paint section. Just in case you pick one of these up, but you're not actually playing as a Child of Adam, you can choose the anointed weapon paint or the standard paint, which will give it more of an industrial look, which I think is really cool for us non-Children of Adam players. Now, we also do have some options for the shard launcher. While it is a little bit less, there are still some there. Starting off with the grind setting, this is going to change out the damage for this weapon. We have the grind setting to medium, the grind setting to fine, which will reduce the size of the projectile, but increase your magazine capacity. And we also have the grind setting to off, which means you will not grind these rocks down to rock shards at all. You'll actually fire the entire rock and get a ton of damage out of it, and even add a little bit of an explosion. We also have a sight section where you can throw on the iron sight or remove the sight entirely. And then finally, we do have a paint section where you can throw on that anointed weapon paint or the standard industrial paint as well. Now, the last piece of important information here is how to actually get ammo for the newly added weapons. You can grab the irradiated bolts by crafting them over at the utility section of the chemistry station for 2 nuclear material and 5 steel, giving you ammo for that bolt rifle. You can also craft the rad shard ammo for the shard cannon by using the radioactive rocks that you can find in this mod. Now, these actually do spawn as crystals around Far Harbor, or you can find them on different enemies. Specifically, you can find them on enemies who are already wielding the shard cannon, or you may be able to find them on feral ghoul spitters as well. Now, additionally, there is that rock conversion for the shard cannon, which means you don't even have to craft these at all. You can just fire the rocks as they are when you pick them up. Now, I think that covers just about everything in this massive mod. This has a ton of new content specifically themed around Far Harbor and the Children of Adam. Definitely a really cool addition to the game. So any of you who love that DLC or like playing as the Children of Adam, this is a mod I'd recommend picking up, as it adds a lot of new stuff for you to explore and encounter. If you'd like to try this mod out for yourself, it will be linked down in the description below as always, and I highly recommend you check it out and give it an endorsement if you enjoy it. Now with that, I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a rating, it really helps out the channel, and consider subscribing for more videos just like this. Big shout out as always to all of my patrons, and a very special thank you to Avian4, Captain Chaos, Freedom, Glasma, Helljumper, Indecisive Wolf, Kid Hades, Cushy, Logan Rigmaiden, Microhan, Moonlit Gamer, Oscar, Scott, Sterling, Steven, Timmy, Youth RC, and Voider for joining that Tier 3 Patreon membership. If you'd like to support the channel over on Patreon, you can do so using the link down in the description, but it is completely optional. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Peace!